Macktez CTO Reilly Scull joins this week to talk about JumpCloud, building an MRR service, and more, plus a special guest interview with JumpCloud's Antoine Jebara on identity transformation and the Open Directory platform. It's a ChannelPro Weekly special edition. Squeezing the Juice, sponsored by JumpCloud. JumpCloud for MSPs allows you to centralize identity, access, and device management capabilities under a single multi-tenant portal and provide your customers with secure, frictionless access to their resources, regardless of OS or location. To learn how to grow your business with an open directory platform, visit cloud.jumpcloud.com/channelpro-podcast. Once more, that's cloud.jumpcloud.com/channelpro-podcast. Hello and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly, a special edition episode this week, sponsored by our friends at JumpCloud. Super excited to have them as a sponsor this week, and we've got a lot of stuff that we're gonna be talking about. It's gonna be a lot of fun. We'll get to that in a minute, though. But this week I am joined by our a new co-host for this episode. Please welcome managing editor Colleen Frye as co-host today. How are you, Colleen?
Good, man. Good. How about yourself?
I am doing okay, coming down with a cold, but I think we'll plow through the show as best we can. Excited to have you. Now, you've been a guest on the show before, especially when we talk about our book club segments and some of the other stories that you've done. But I think this is your first time in the co-host chair.
I think it is, and I'm not going to lie. I feel a little special.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to have you to join us here for this one, and it's going to be I think a fun episode. We've got a lot because we also have a guest host. We searched far and wide to find a JumpCloud partner to come on and guest host with us today, and we managed to find one. He is waiting in the wings, ready. He is the CTO of a company called Macktez. I think Macktez is what it is. He's a natural thinker. He's a tinkerer. He grew up taking apart every gadget he could get his hands on just so he could put them all back together. He also races sailboats, which I'm so excited to talk about. And he does cycling. Please welcome Reilly Scull. Welcome, Reilly.
Hi, happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on here on this special edition podcast. Why don't we go ahead and just dive in and start learning a little bit more about you. So Reilly, tell us a little bit more about your background, a little bit more about the company you work for, Macktez, and yeah, take it away.
So Macktez, I've been working there for about 10 years. We're traditionally a IT consulting firm that has been pushed by the rest of the world to becoming an MSP. My ex-girlfriend described what I do as playing with wires and writing emails. But we do pretty much everything under the sun. If it uses electricity and it doesn't require an electrician, it's probably us that can tell you about how it works. In addition to run-of-the-mill, we got a client with new computers, desktop support stuff. There's also mergers and acquisitions of multinational corporations, large-scale cloud infrastructure design, data security, all kinds of stuff in the kind of IT space. And I am kind of the chief nerd over there who's furthest in the weeds, trying to find those evil semicolons to take out of the code.
So yeah, how long have you been with Macktez?
About 10 years.
And then what were you doing before that kind of led you there?
I graduated from college in 2011 and worked at another MSP for a spell, and then moved over to Macktez, and is a unique position for someone my age, but never left. Been there since, and really like the people I work with. And the thing that I thought would cause me to leave my role would be I got bored, and it's been 10 years and I haven't gotten bored yet.
Hard to get bored in the IT space because of it, given how much change takes place year to year.
Yeah. I feel like I know how the internet works better than anyone I know, and I barely know how it works. The more you learn, it's so deep.
It is a very complicated thing. So you're in the New York area, right?
Yep.
And so what I know your bio said that you kind of you do cycling. So do you do like street cycling? Do you do races? What do you do with cycling?
I was born in Manhattan and lived there for 25 years or so. And in New York, you don't really drive cars. It's not a thing. I don't have a license, never driven a car before. So to get around, you're either taking the subway or biking. And the subway kind of sucks, so I bike everywhere. And so I've got a carbon road bike and kind of like duke it out with taxi cabs on 7th Ave.
Nice.
So I wouldn't call it racing, but every once in a while, like one time I was heading up 6th from Soho and I saw a full chrome Lamborghini headed north. And I was like, all right, challenge accepted. I'm going to see if you can get up like that. He'd screech away at a green, then get stuck in traffic, and I'd bob and weave. So a competitive edge, but not actual racing.
Very cool. Very cool. And you said you raced sailboats, and we were talking a little bit about this before we started recording. And you've been racing for 20 years. Tell us about some of the races that you've done, because it sounded really, really interesting.
So I started when I was 12. My parents were divorced. My dad lived down in Miami, and I went down one summer and they stuck me in sailing camp. And for 2 weeks, I was like, I can't make sense of this thing. I don't like it. And then on the second week, it clicked. I was like, this is my new favorite thing. And I've been doing it ever since. Whenever I travel for holidays or whatever, always trying to, find a place to go sailing while I'm away. And in the city during the summers, I will go racing. There's a sailing club by Brooklyn Bridge in the Hudson River, East River. And we've got a fleet of around 24 boats. And they're about 24 feet long. The ones that I race have a carbon fiber mast and are super high performance boats. And you try really hard not to crash into each other because it's super expensive and dangerous. Don't do that. Happens now and again. And yeah, one of the things that I find most enjoyable about sail racing is I think about it a bit like watching ballet, where it's not actually that complicated. There's a couple steps, there's a couple sequences, but how perfectly can you do it reliably every time? And then it's not just you doing it, it's synchronized. You've got a whole team that everyone needs to hit their mark exactly on time. Really, we're just driving a boat in a circle, but like, how well can you do it? And that kind of continual search for improvement is something that I also bring to my work at Macktez of just, yeah, we've done this before, but how can we iterate? How can we do it better? How can we, shave off a fraction of a percent, and just never be complacent with where you're at.
So what's like the longest race that you've done? Because I know some of them can get pretty long days, right?
The longest I did was 3 weeks.
Wow.
I sailed from the Canary Islands off of Morocco, following the trade winds down to St. Lucia, and that was about 3,000 miles. Took about 3 weeks.
Wow, that's a long race. Was that like grueling?
That was definitely the longest I've done. What's that?
That must have been a somewhat grueling experience to race that.
Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart. You're awake, asleep every 4 hours for the duration. You're eating pretty trash food. The boats get knocked over in squalls in the middle of the night in the North Atlantic. It's pretty hairy for people who don't have a death wish or an adrenaline junkie streak or something. It's very much type 2 fun, right? There's type 1 fun being it's fun, type 2 fun being it's not fun, but when you're done, you're really happy you did it. And then type 3 fun being just not fun. It was definitely type 2 fun, but an extremely rewarding experience. You might think that the ocean looks the same every day when you're out there for 3 weeks, but it's extremely dynamic. Just every day was something new to see.
So the first thing that comes to mind when I hear that story, Reilly, is did you have to go for 3 weeks without a shower? Because that would be a deal breaker for me.
Short answer, yes. Long answer. So, you fill up your water tanks at the beginning of the trip, and you have a water maker on the boat, and you have enough water to keep you alive for the duration. And you don't touch any of the water in the water tanks. And then when you get halfway across the ocean, you go, okay, well, we have enough water to make us get all the way there. You can use the first tank for showers. So you get kind of a shower after 10 days or something. And anytime like there's big rainstorms, everyone just runs up on deck and goes and showers in the rain.
Not quite the same thing, but I guess it would help.
They could bust out the Head and Shoulders in a rain shower. Why not, right? That's awesome. Well, really fascinating stuff. Great to have you on, Reilly. I know you have a lot to talk about, especially as we start talking about JumpCloud, because we have an interview coming up later, folks. Antoine Jebara, he's the co-founder and general manager of the MSP Channel at JumpCloud. He's going to be joining us in a little while, and we're going to be talking to him. And I'm sure it's going to be a fascinating discussion. It's a really, really cool platform. So I'm really looking forward to talking about it. And I know, Reilly, you're one of their bigger partners, right?
I don't know that we're one of their bigger partners by total headcount, but we've been a partner with them for a very long time. And the types of work we do with JumpCloud, I think, is very much pushing the envelope compared to many of the other partners out there. We really are interested in like squeezing every bit of juice you can out of that orange. So we're frequently engaged by JumpCloud to do beta testing, to talk with the product owners as new things are coming out, and kind of talk shop about how we're using it, how we wish we could use it. Not just like writing in a feature request, but getting on with a senior engineer, going into the details, really talking through the minutia with them. So we've got a pretty close working relationship with the leadership and the technical teams over there.
Very cool. That'll be a fascinating conversation when we get to that, and I'm really looking forward to it. But we got some other things we're going to talk about too here at the top of the show. We're going to be talking about our next online summits coming up. Colleen will tell us a little bit about that. We're going to be talking about the Cecilia Galvin scholarship that we give out every year in partnership with, I believe that's with CompTIA, if I remember correctly. We're talking about that. We're going to be talking about a story from the SANS Institute and how to build an MRR service around smart home sensors. It sounds kind of fascinating. So, Colleen, why don't we just start at the top? We've got a cybersecurity online summit coming up, correct?
We do on April 18th. It's our cybersecurity online summit, and it's subtitled Risk and Reward. And there's lots of great sessions that we have planned. One is called the MSP's Court. And so we're going to have a legal expert in one of the sessions who's going to be taking questions live from MSPs about, what are some risks and liabilities of offering your customers a cybersecurity stack? Reilly, that may come up for you and with some of your customers. Do you have legal questions when you get into cybersecurity with your customers?
Our COO, Michael Horst, is our go-to for legal counsel. And what he's basically instilled in me over the years is it actually doesn't matter what any of the contract says. They're going to come for you, right? If we as the MSP are telling someone this is how to manage your security, it doesn't matter what's in our contract. If there's a breach, the insurance company that's got the claim is going to come after us. So we got to make sure that we are above board and doing everything by the letter. You can't just have a clause that's like, not my fault. Like it's the onus and responsibility is on us regardless.
So our legal expert, we're going to be talking about how to mitigate, some of those risks, how to protect your business, and offer the best service you can to your customers. And then, like I said, we'll be taking questions live too. So if you happen to join us that day, Reilly, you can throw a legal question at our attorney. We're also going to have a session on compliance as a service. That's kind of a new up and coming area for a lot of MSPs. And we're going to have questions and answers on how to get started, what you need to know about the different compliance regulations that are out there. And it should be a very lively and interactive session. We have three MSPs on board who are all offering compliance as a service. So it should be quite informative if you're not already moving in that direction. We're also having our friend from CompTIA coming on the session to talk about how to build a security first culture at your MSP, which I think is first and foremost for, hardening your own business first and then helping customers. Reilly, is that sound what you guys do? Do you have a security first culture at your MSP?
Very much so. Yes.
Yeah, I think you have to these days. We're also going to have a session called The Price is Right. And we're going to kind of have a game show theme. And Matt is our expert game show MC. And we're going to try to build off the old Price is Right and also provide some great information about how to bundle and price your security stack just right. Not too expensive, not too cheap, but how to get it right. So there should be a fun, gamified way to provide that information to our audience. Last but not least, we're going to have a ransomware security story slam. So if you've ever been to a poetry slam, or if you listen to, the Moth Radio when they have story hour, the story slam is three panelists are each going to tell their most scary, most hair-raising ransomware story that they experienced with a client or within their own business, and some of the lessons they learned through that. And then we'll have some time for questions from the audience, and the audience will kind of get to decide who told the story that was, not only most scary, but most informative, and how they could take some of those tips and apply it if they have an incident. So that's kind of our show in a nutshell, Matt.
It's a great number of sessions. It's a good agenda. I'm sure you've piqued Reilly's interest. If your interests have been piqued as well, it's really easy to sign up. Go to channelproforum.com/2023. There you can sign up for that event, as well as any of our other digital or in-person events as well. If you want to get a little bit more details about that specific event, you can also go to events.channelpronetwork.com. If you're watching, I'll throw a QR code up on the screen. You can scan that as well. Use promo code CP Weekly, and that will get you in the door for free. So you can bypass that, make it nice and easy. Join us. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to take away a lot. It's going to help you with your business, with all those things we were talking about. So make sure you attend. Don't miss it. With that, we are going to move on. And Colleen, we have nominations open for the Cecilia Galvin Scholarship. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so Cecilia Galvin was ChannelPro's executive editor for a long time. Both Matt and I worked with her, and she was just a real trailblazer in women in technology, women in STEM. And unfortunately, she met an early death. And so we are all quite heartbroken. And we wanted to honor her in some way. So we collaborated with CompTIA to develop this scholarship for a young woman who's about to graduate from high school, who has an interest in some sort of science or tech or STEM pursuit. That doesn't have to be a 4-year college. It can be they want to go to a apprenticeship program or a tech training program, or even take a community college or take CompTIA certification classes. And so it's a $5,000 scholarship. Both ChannelPro and CompTIA contribute to it. And the nominations are open now, and they're going to stay open until, I think, April 28th. So if you're out there listening, spread the word. If you know a female high school student who has an interest in pursuing this field, and let her know about the scholarship. And the requirements are all on the website. And Matt, I know that Cecilia was a dear friend of yours too. I don't know if you wanted to add anything about Cecilia, that she's such a big presence in our work world.
I am so glad that we do this to honor her memory, because I don't think there's a day I still come to work where I don't think of her in some way, shape, or form. She and I got to know each other quite well. We would spend quite a bit of time just on calls, just having not just work related discussions, but we would talk about anything and everything. I also point out she was an amazing editor too. One of the best that I've ever worked with. She had just such a way with words, and so I'm just so glad that we get to honor her in this way and keep that memory alive. And I'm going to move on before I get choked up thinking about it. So why don't we move forward? But yeah, this award, we're going to put a link to this in the show description. So if you're listening on your phone, you can go to channelpronetwork.com, find the show sheet for this custom episode. It's the one that it'll be like a special sponsored by JumpCloud. Go find that. You'll find the link there. Open up the area on your phone for in your podcast app for descriptions. Usually you'll find the links in there. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe, hit the bell, hit the like button. There's a lot of buttons on YouTube. Just hit them all, except the thumbs down. Don't hit the thumbs down. We don't like that button. That's an evil button. But any other button is fine. So make sure you do all that stuff. But you can open up the description area there on YouTube, and you'll find the links to that and all the other stories that we're going to talk about as well. So go do that. And if you know a young lady to nominate who's going into some kind of STEM field, by all means, throw her name in the hat, and that would be great.
And the winners, Matt, will be announced in August at ChannelCon.
Oh, awesome. So you don't even have to wait all that long to find out if you get it or not. So that is great. So Colleen, we've got a story here in the notes, something about the SANS Institute and Google. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so this just happened the end of the week before last. They are launching the SANS Cloud Diversity Academy. And it's going to be specifically focused on cloud security, so training for cloud security. And they partner with Google on this effort. They've partnered with Google on several other efforts in trying to not only diversify the workforce, but upskill the cybersecurity workforce. And so they've had a lot of success with that, according to Max Schuften, who was the SANS Institute program person that I interviewed for this story. And so they got talking about how the training for cloud security specifically, there's not a lot of it. The need is acute. So they put their heads together and they launched this academy. And it's going to be reaching out to Black, Indigenous, and people of color, women, and other underrepresented groups who may not have another avenue to get the training they need to work in cloud security. And so the first cohort is starting soon. They're taking applicants now. They're going to train about 25 people in the academy. Candidates can earn up to 3 certifications, and it's the GIAC certifications, which is kind of the gold standard. And so, according to the SANS Institute program director, even if they earn just 1, 2, or 3 certifications, that they will be ready to go for an entry-level job in cloud security. And so they're hoping to have some success with that. And it hasn't been determined yet if there'll be a second cohort, but they think there will be because the need is so acute. And it caught my eye, because ChannelPro over the past couple of years has started a special column called Diversity Focus, and we're trying to shine a light on efforts in the channel to diversify the workforce and help more people rise up into the career field. So yeah, that's what's going on there.
Anything we can do to get more people into the workforce, because Reilly, I don't know if you're seeing it, but we're hearing just stories everywhere about major problems getting and retaining labor.
I think it has always been true that it's hard to get good help.
So the more the better. So go and check out that program. That's very cool. Now we got one other story.
They're taking applications now, Matt, and they're closing the applicant pool April 14th. So again, if you know someone who's got an interest in this, and they don't have to be a college graduate, they could be driving an Uber right now, but the SANS Institute classes will get you ready for an entry-level job.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, so go and hit that form, nominate someone that I think that would be great. Help them take off into a new career, because there's lots of places hiring. I could guarantee that, as I'm talking to other business owners and MSPs here on the show and at our events. They're all looking for help. So go and check that out. We got one other story that I think it will be interesting, and that's how to build an MRR service around smart home sensors. What's this one, Colleen?
So we sent our intrepid contributing editor, James Gaskin, off into the IoT sphere and asked him to take a look at smart sensors and if there is any opportunity for channel pros to sort of develop a line of service around it. And it turns out that a lot of folks are installing smart sensors in their homes, as we know, and Matt and Reilly, you guys might have a bunch in yours, whether it's a thermostat or HVAC or doorbells or whatever. But the more of these devices that get installed, the more complicated it gets to keep them up to date and patched with the firmware, et cetera. And even though a lot of, say the alarm systems may say they're DIY, sometimes they're complicated to install. So people are starting to build a business around this, and the residential market is an opportunity for this kind of subscription service. So you get your stuff installed, and then your ChannelPro will keep it updated, make sure it's secure, will manage it for you. Riley, I don't know if any of your customers are installing smart sensors in their workplace that you're getting involved in.
Yeah, they're everywhere. From my perspective, we try, for the things that we are installing, try not to put in one gizmo from every vendor in the world, to try and narrow down the list of providers that we work with. It means that we have the firmwares at our fingertips ready to go. We are more familiar with how to maintain everything, just have a fewer number of pieces. But there are so many devices out there that when we are designing networks and how these devices are going to play in, the effort that we're putting in is more on the network design and segmentation and building in routing rules, DMZs, keep your Zigbees and your Nest things away from your private protected zones. But yeah, they're everywhere, and they're an increasing attack vector. If you have one little gizmo in your super, you could have a $10,000 firewall and $20,000 switches and one compromised IoT device in there. Someone can tunnel in. You're only as strong as your weakest link.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously things that we stay vigilant about and try and scrutinize.
And it's really not just the high-end residential market either, because now supply chains are using smart sensors to monitor food temperature as a product travels through the supply chain. And so it seems like there's a lot of opportunity to manage these and keep them secure.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you have a tool in your stack that looks for IoT type devices and helps you discover them?
So we have we often use a tool called Domots, which is a network monitoring platform that sticks a small probe on a network. It's basically a Raspberry Pi that will do network discovery, SNMP. You can, if there's multiple VLANs, you give it an interface on each VLAN and are like, hey, these are the subnets to go explore. It'll scan around. For things that support it, we can do configuration dumps, syslog servers, and just start collecting data from them. In some cases, configuration management, certainly not like an Ansible, but trying to at least be aware of everything on the network, if not actively managing everything. Many of the networks we're deploying, we are the architects and kind of the builders of it, and then it's handed over to the company, and we're not there every day, and people plug in printers and they plug in what have you. I don't think we can reasonably say that we are managing every single device that touches one of these networks, but we do want to know about every device that touches those networks. So we do have discovery tools if not full management.
Very cool. Something that probably more and more MSPs are looking to have, because these devices are proliferating in businesses everywhere. And you're right, they can be a big security risk especially if you don't know about them, right? So you got to know what's there. That's certainly very important. Well,
and it's a model, I
good
think,
article.
I'm sorry, it's a model that I think fits in very well with what ChannelPros and our MSPs do now. Is you get them on retainer, and you get a monthly service fee to keep your devices managed and secure.
Yeah, weird to think that the homes someday may have to have an MSP to deal with all of their technology and security and network needs, because it's becoming kind of an important thing. And security it affects everybody, not just in the workplace, but at home too. So it's kind of weird that those markets might be kind of converging a little bit. But that's probably a discussion for another day. We are going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Antoine Jebara. He's the I just had his title up. He is the co-founder and general manager of the MSP channel at JumpCloud. We're going to be talking about identity transformation, and we're going to be talking about what the JumpCloud for MSPs is, and a bunch of those things. It's going to be a really fascinating interview. We will be right back. Hello and welcome back to part 2 of this custom episode of ChannelPro Weekly, sponsored by our fine friends at JumpCloud. Excited to have Reilly still with us here on the other side, but we are also joined by a guest, and our guest today on our show, really excited to have him on, is Antoine Jebara. He is from JumpCloud. Antoine, say hello.
Hi everyone. Happy to be here.
It's great to have you on. I know we've been kind of teasing along the show that you were going to be stopping by to tell us a little bit more about JumpCloud and stuff. So why don't we go ahead and start with that? Why don't you tell us a little bit about JumpCloud and kind of what it is and where your background there.
So JumpCloud is an open directory platform that allows direct IT admins and MSPs to centralize identity, access, and device management capabilities and offer these services in one unified offering.
Cool. How long have you been around for, Antoine? How long has JumpCloud been around for?
JumpCloud's been around for over 10 years now, and I recently joined JumpCloud after my company, which was called MyKey, was acquired by JumpCloud. So MyKey used to do password management specifically for managed service providers and their customers. And Raj and Greg, the original founders of JumpCloud, recognized the importance of password management to the open directory platform vision. And we had conversations which ended with us selling the company to JumpCloud, and I joined JumpCloud as one of the co-founders. That happened last year.
Very cool. And tell us a little bit more about you and your background. So you said you were with MyKey, and did you start that, or did you just work there? How did you end up kind of down that path?
So I co-founded MyKey. I was the CEO of the company. I started in Beirut, Lebanon. I'm half Lebanese, half French. And our target market has always been MSPs, their customers, and direct consumers, because password management is a lifestyle product, and whatever you're selling at an enterprise level, users need to use at home as well for it to be sticky. So we grew the business from literally 0 partners to over 800 partners transacting with us across the world that had dozens of thousands of organizations on it. The way they'd use it is by deploying it internally to manage internal passwords, but also they resold password management to their customers, and we enabled them to do that. So that's the story of MyKey. I co-founded it, was the CEO of it, and now I'm the GM of MSP products, or the GM of our MSP business at JumpCloud.
That's a very, very cool background. How you got there? It's cool. I've never met anyone who's half Lebanese and half French. That's a pretty cool combination.
It's very common in Lebanon, but obviously not in France. You have to be half Lebanese to be half French.
So we're talking about JumpCloud today, and we're talking about Open Directory and some of the things that it solves. And I know one of the things that JumpCloud is kind of talking about is identity transformation, right? So for those who may not be kind of familiar with that, what is identity transformation? Like, what does that mean, and why is that important to solve?
So your digital identity is the representation of your identity in the digital world. When an IT admin needs to give you access to a certain device or resource, they give you a digital identity access to that resource. And as a result, you get access to the information that you need to get access to. So our digital identity is one of the most important thing out there. The new perimeter that you have to protect is not a physical location. It's a person represented by their digital identity online. So we've established that this is very important. In the past, when we used to work in networks, you used to have a home for identities, which was called Active Directory. And in Active Directory, you had all the digital identities of users, and IT admins gave access to these users to different devices and on-prem services, and that was all great. But over the course of the last 10, 15 years, the world has changed a lot. We're now all over the place. We're global. We have cloud applications, cloud infrastructure, multiple operating system and types of devices that range from mobile devices to hardware devices to different types of appliances that you might want to connect to. So it's gotten increasingly more complex and spread out geographically. And AD is not able to connect you anymore to all of these types of resources because AD is designed to connect you on-prem in a local network. So a lot of companies got created over the last 10, 15 years that do point solutions, right? That allow you to connect to different types of cloud or remote infrastructure, things that allow you to connect through VPN to on-prem networks, single sign-on applications to connect to different cloud applications, Radius in the cloud, LDAP connectors in the cloud, password managers to use passwords to log into different types of systems. It's really become nebulous. And your customers today as an MSP really want freedom of choice. They want to be able to use anything out there, any type of service, any type of device, any type of operating system, any type of authentication method. So if you want to provide them with these services, you need to build on top of AD infrastructure. So you need infrastructure to actually enable your users to do this. And what we're saying with identity transformation is that this is not the right way to do it anymore. This patchwork of different tools that you have to try to make use case happen, it should not be the way moving forward. We should have a cloud native way, a way that's designed in an open way, that's designed to allow you to connect to any type of application, service, network appliance over any type of operating system or authentication mechanism without having any resistance from the technology or the vendor that's in place. So that's what we mean by identity transformation, moving from this old infrastructure world of doing things to this new cloud native, clean and optimized way of doing things. So that's identity transformation.
So my question following that is, how does an open directory platform solve, the most pressing IT needs associated with identity transformation?
Yeah, so at some point in the future, the distant future or not so distant future, Microsoft's going to say Active Directory is discontinued or is going to be discontinued or has an exorbitant price to it or is being extremely limited. At that point in time, IT admins are going to have to pick one of two ways. They'll either go the Microsoft-centric way, which we call the closed way. And that means you'll need to use everything that Microsoft has to offer to enable IT services to your customers. And that's okay because a lot of companies want that specific use cases where they'll be restricted there and they won't have freedom of choice, etc. But that's what works for their business. And then there's the other way, which is the open way, which is the JumpCloud way, which says you have a cloud native directory that is open, that connects to any type of identity source or infrastructure that you have in place, and that allows you as an IT admin to centralize identity management, access management, and device management in one package that makes sense. So that's the open directory platform concept in general, and JumpCloud is an open directory platform.
So Reilly, I want to kind of draw you into the conversation here. Were these problems that you were facing? Were you seeing this as a need that you needed to fill? And kind of what brought you to JumpCloud as the solution for
that? Yes, short answer. They were problems, and JumpCloud has been is far and away my favorite way to solve these challenges. The way that Antoine's talking about disparate technologies, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, whoever, everyone's got their own tech stacks. I think about it sometimes as like you're trying to make a salad dressing and you've got an oil and a water layer and they don't really want to mix. JumpCloud's the emulsification that makes it a creamy, smooth, consistent experience. Where it started out, what my company Macktez, when we first were introduced to JumpCloud was 7 or 8 years ago or so, we were looking for a cloud radius instance to be backed by Google Apps at the time, now Google Workspace. And we had tried a product called Cloudessa that didn't really work as well as we'd hoped, and it led us to JumpCloud. And JumpCloud wasn't using Google as the directory provider. It became the directory provider, was able to provide radius services, and was also able to push its identities over into Google. So JumpCloud becomes the source of authority, the single set of truth, and proliferates outward. That is the typical setup we use, and is definitely how we first came to learn and dig into JumpCloud. But since then, JumpCloud's evolved. They now support many other sources as the source of identity. So if you are an existing enterprise that uses Okta, and Okta has really terrible, non-existent device agents, there's no easy method of logging into a Mac or a Windows computer with your Okta credentials without doing a bunch of really convoluted, on the Microsoft side, Azure AD Federation, or using kind of like Jamf Connect on the Mac side. But it is way easier to use with JumpCloud. Install an agent, basically works in a few seconds. And so even for environments where you may already have a pre-existing infrastructure that isn't built on JumpCloud as your core identity provider, they're able to extend their services and go, oh, well, now I can add computers, even though I'm already in an Okta environment. Now I can have better device management and sign in through there. And similarly, we have a lot of customers who still use Azure, right? Like Microsoft's an incredible company doing really, really incredible stuff. I used to kind of be a hater, and now I'm a big supporter of Microsoft. And even environments where we're using JumpCloud as our core directory provider, we're tunneling into Azure. The way that JumpCloud is able to make firm handshakes with every other provider out there, whether it's through SAML, OIDC, LDAP, the integrations with Google and Microsoft are neither SAML, they're richer, the base cloud connections to those. But client may have a tool, maybe it's a local access control to get into their office, maybe it's a small access control company that only will integrate with Azure AD, but will federate Azure AD back to JumpCloud. So when an end user logs into their access control system, they're seeing a JumpCloud page. It's a consistent, unified experience. It doesn't, like, a big part of getting these solutions to work is when customers feel like it works for them. If the IT admin is like, no, it's working, and the client is like, no, it's not working. It's not working. Like, it needs to work for the person. And when you have this really consistent user experience, the clients are like, wow, this is really easy, and it works. It's definitely resulted in the most happy clients versus more clunky applications that I think we saw prior to JumpCloud's hitting the scene.
So really, happy clients are always an awesome result. Are there any other sort of, key benefits to your business that partnering with JumpCloud, has brought to the table for you?
There've been, it started with directory, and the ability to deal with actual endpoints, to deal with agent installation has been huge. We have a number of environments where we might not be able to do full device management for a given company with just JumpCloud at any given moment, but day by day, the feature set keeps getting built out, and the like pros, cons, rationale to use another MDM provider or endpoint management keep getting whittled down. And we're seeing, I would expect that 90% of all endpoint and identity of all of our clients will be on JumpCloud in the next few years. Right now, it's JumpCloud probably represents 70% of our directory clients and the tool we're using for directory, but there are people that are in pre-existing Windows or Jamf environments that haven't migrated into JumpCloud for endpoint management. But the feature set just keeps getting richer and richer. The development cycle over there is excellent. So it solves an ever increasing number of things where, like BYOD is a black hole, right? There's so many challenges associated with managing security in BYOD. And when you attend the, roadmap webinars every quarter to see what's coming down the pipeline at JumpCloud, we're getting closer and closer to this just not being a problem anymore. We're like, oh yeah, you can bring your own device. We can containerize the applications. We can do VPP deployment or soon to be VPP deployment to personal devices and Sandbox to say, yep, you can bring whatever and you can install Outlook on it or the Gmail application. And I know that if you lose your phone, the company can nuke that and not touch your photos, right? There's just a lot of like little problems that aren't problems anymore. And it lets us help our clients think about how to do their business and not how do they deal with endpoint management for personally owned devices. So it's hard to say that there are like 2 or 3 things that JumpCloud does. It's a really big swath. It's more like I wouldn't want to say it's a Swiss Army knife. It's a little more like a transformer.
And Colleen, to add to what Reilly's saying, in general, what we're seeing across our partners base is that JumpCloud helps them drastically reduce their operating costs, but also the cost of vendors, because instead of having to use different types, like 6 or 7 or 8 types of different vendors to achieve your goals, you can very frequently consolidate with JumpCloud. And that can be done on day one or over time. And we see more and more partners do it over time when they have multi-year commitments with different vendors. They just start choosing more and more of JumpCloud over time until they get there. So reduction in operating costs and cost of software vendors. We're seeing a lot of increase in revenues because a lot of our partners come to us with an existing stack, and they realize that they can offer MFA, password management, and patch management, which they don't have in a specific bundle that they offer. They can include these features in the bundle very easily at no huge increase in cost, and that results in an increase in revenues. And we also see a lot of increase when it comes to security, or better habits when it comes to security in general, because the consolidation approach allows them to put a lot of their security infrastructure in the Open Directory platform, which gives them centralized visibility and control over it, which reduces the number of human error, the amount of human error, the space of human error that you can have around a series of products, but also allows them to have this consolidated understanding of what's happening at different points of their ecosystems across identities, across access management, and across device management.
A good example of that is we may have a client that it's a larger company. They use Adobe, they use Google and Microsoft services. Maybe they have some things over in Google Drive, maybe also in SharePoint. Because we're able to do now group management at Google and Microsoft through JumpCloud, we're able to say in a single pane of glass, when someone either changes roles or is onboarded, offboarded, whatever, we can at the JumpCloud console, add permissions to this file share, grant access to this VPN resource, give access to this Adobe license. You are taking disparate environments that used to require you to go into each one's individual admin console to create users, do whatever, and putting that all in a single pane of glass means that our team is changing. It's fewer logins. It's really streamlining our process and makes us more efficient, which then translates to faster case resolution for clients, and just everyone is happier when we don't have to jump as hard or as far to do the same thing.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So, Antoine, there's JumpCloud as is that a broad solution, or is there something specific for MSPs that JumpCloud does, like JumpCloud for MSPs?
We introduced JumpCloud for MSPs last summer, and what it is 2 things. It's a multi-tenant portal that gives MSPs centralized visibility and control over the different organizations that they have deployed JumpCloud through. And that has specific integrations with PSAs and has a single pane of glass. And we're building a ton of additional functionalities in there. So there's this product offering. And then there's the new Ascent Partner Program, which is our MSP partner program that offers marketing support, sales support, education and certification, and preferential pricing. So volume-based discounts for MSPs looking to scale with JumpCloud. And this second point, the Ascent Partner Program for us is a very important thing, because a lot of companies will tell you that they have a partner program and they'll put a couple of things in there. What we're really thinking is that a partnership is a two-way street. Right, so we're going to give as much as the partner is going to give, and we'll help sell, we'll help deploy, we'll help market, we'll also help train the teams and make sure that we're successful in general. And we can do that with both of us having the mindset of scale. So what we're doing with a lot of our partners now is obviously QBRs, but instead of the QBRs being more of where are we now and what have you been doing, what are your plans for the year, how can we support you, it's more a common joint go-to-market where we're saying, okay, what do we have to do proactively together to reach these new customers that you've acquired, to show them the value in JumpCloud, to get JumpCloud in their hands, etc. And so we're investing a significant amount of effort at that, and it's a program that's getting more and more mature every day. And I think that this is one of the main reasons that a lot of MSPs are coming to us and are sticking around and are growing their accounts with us.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your partner adoption rate. Is it growing quickly, and is it primarily because of your benefits in the program?
So our MSP channel is one of our fastest growing channels at JumpCloud. And the reason for it, and I'm a strong believer in this, is that a JumpCloud MSP today is in a much better situation to dominate their market than a non-JumpCloud MSP. The reason for that is that they can reduce their costs, as mentioned before. They can reduce the number of vendors, the complexity, the cost of the different solutions, and their operating costs by using JumpCloud. They definitely increase their revenues. We've seen MSPs start selling some of our point solutions that are part of the Open Directory platforms the next day after becoming JumpCloud partners, and it improves security in general. So I would say that if you're a JumpCloud MSP today, you have a clear advantage over competition, and we're working really hard to provide your end clients with value by keeping in mind that we're partners in this. We're not expecting you to go sell without giving you anything in return. We're actually committing a ton of resources, time, know-how, technology to help you be successful, because our success at the end of the day depends on your success as our partner.
You know, that's probably a good transition into just to talk about the cybersecurity market, just kind of in general. Like, so what is your take on the cybersecurity market right now? What do you think that MSPs need to do to address some of these challenges that you're talking about?
I think that cybersecurity has been getting increasingly more a more complex space and harder to protect against in general. And now with this generative AI wave, which is accelerating things at a huge pace, we're going to see attacks in general become much more complex, much more sophisticated, much more multi-stage. So, and if you're an SMB today, you've been outgunned for 10 years. At this point in time, there's nothing you can do. You're an SMB, you're doing your thing, you're a dental office, you're a legal office, you're a construction company, you're a software development firm. Your job is not cybersecurity, your job is not IT. So we're seeing more and more companies recognize this need and outsource their IT and security capabilities to MSPs. And that's going to continue to provide an amazing opportunity for MSPs to really show thought leadership, implement best practices, and really protect these organizations that are putting their security in their hands. My advice, I guess, to MSPs would be continue being very security minded, become more security minded, make sure your team is trained on it. It's top of mind all the time. Have the right conversations with the right vendors to always know what's cutting edge, what you need to know, what you need to have in place, how this helps you provide a better security protection layer to your customers in general. And finally, I would say work on being extremely transparent with your users, because at the end of the day, the security of a customer depends a lot on the security of the end user that can get phished, that can get social engineered as a subset of that. And it's very hard. Like, you'll train the team, you'll implement best practices, but at the end of the day, it's transparency and communication and making them understand that whatever you have in place is the baseline, and that's bleeding edge. That's the best thing that they can have, but that they need to get their teams ramped up to date about security and aware of what they should and shouldn't do. Obviously, we're not asking anyone, you shouldn't ask anyone to become an expert in cybersecurity, but there are clear rules of thumb that every employee in a company needs to contribute in order to keep the company safe. So as an MSP, that would be my advice. Like, keep talking to vendors, keep caring about security, keep talking, to be very transparent with your customers in general, and make them understand that security also is a two-way street. They need to commit to it as much as you commit to it.
Reilly, I want to throw it to you. Do you have anything you want to add to that? Do you agree? What's your take on the cybersecurity market? What are you doing as an MSP to evolve?
Don't stop. Whatever you do, don't stop, right? Whenever you're like, oh, I think this is good enough. Nope, keep going. Like, it's the rate of offense is moving. It keeps moving, as Antoine's talking about. The rate of defense needs to keep pace with it. So while a few years ago it was, okay, well, we need to enable MFA everywhere, and users didn't want to deal with it. Now every company in the world has just gotten around to enabling MFA. That's not close enough anymore. Now it's conditional access policies. It's device posture. It's zero trust. And behind every door is more locked doors. And when you look at your network and when you look at your infrastructure stack and you go, okay, well, once they get in here, we're going to trust them. No, you can't trust anybody. You can't trust anybody ever. I think lots of companies used to be like, okay, we're okay with just an SPF record on our email. Now, if you don't have DKIM and DMARC, like, that's a deal breaker. You need to be taking these things on full steam all the time, and there's no rest for the wicked. So it's just like, don't ever get complacent.
For sure. You're talking about, Antoine mentioned like the different types of AI generational improvements that we've seen in things like ChatGPT and other stuff. How are you as an MSP thinking about, and Antoine, feel free to jump in on this too. Like, what are your thoughts on that? What kind of ramifications do you anticipate from this massive wave of AI investment and improvement? And what are you doing to prepare for it? So that's either of you.
Yeah, I mean, from our end, I think that the generative AI with ChatGPT being like at the front end of that has already changed the world, right? And things are going to continue moving really fast moving forward. So a lot of things that used to take time or complex to do, that you couldn't rely on any person on your team to achieve, you're going to start to be able to do. And that has ramifications everywhere. So it's a bit difficult to kind of summarize how the world is going to look, because it's hard to predict how the world is going to look in 1 year and 5 years moving forward. What's for certain is that anything that has a monetary incentive for someone to do anything like monetarily, the actors that are looking to maximize their profits will need to use these types of new technologies to augment their capabilities, accelerate their profits, etc. That works on the good and on the bad. On the good, we'll have innovation. We're going to have a ton of internal processes improvements within organizations. Our lives in general are going to get much more streamlined, easier. A lot of tedious tasks won't seem as tedious in the future. But also, malicious parties are going to use that same technology to their advantage to try to maximize their returns, or what they're trying to get out of this. And that's scary, because it's stepping up the playing field, right? We were trying, like, it's a cat and mouse game at that level. Now, all of a sudden, it's going to be a cat and mouse game at a much higher level. And it's hard to predict who's going to move far faster, the defensive or the offensive. An AI system makes you more creative because it gives you more opportunities to explore different avenues to go after. Who is it going to benefit more, the attacker or the defender? Or is it going to still be the same thing that it is today? It's hard to predict, but it's definitely going to be a very interesting year and coming years.
Yeah, Reilly, anything you want to add?
Two sides of the same coin. The most recent, or not the most recent, but 2 weeks ago, John Oliver had a good bit about this, as did South Park, talking about what happens when people are relying on the output from generative AI. And one of the kind of caveats, like it's going to displace a bunch of labor, right? Copywriters are already on the chopping block, but there's a lot of things that will come out of it that will be huge advances in productivity, but you fundamentally don't necessarily know what it's going to produce. And trusting the output of this without an underlying understanding is going to be fraught with disaster. I was a mechanical engineering student, and they make you learn a lot of calculus. Every mechanical engineering professional I know doesn't do calculus on a regular basis. They use software, but they need to understand the underlying, how does this work? Is we start to displace tasks onto AI platforms, the people who were using these still need to understand how it works to be like, that answer is totally wrong. Like, I can envelope math, that doesn't look right. So you can't just trust that these things are going to just give you the right answer every time. I think it's not going to be that Gen AI is going to displace IT professionals. I think it's IT professionals are going to need to become experts in working with Gen AI. And to Antoine's previous point about whether it's the attackers or the defensive side that's going to go faster, I definitely think the attackers are going to go faster. I think that on average, the malicious actors that are building exploits or finding exploits and using them tend to be much more technically savvy than the average IT professional who's just like trying to keep the street clean, you know? So we're going to need to all be very vigilant, and things like patch management, right? Something that JumpCloud has made much, much easier for people on their platform. 5-10 years ago, you should be doing it, right? You should be patching your things, but if you don't, okay, we'll get around to it. These days, right, the most recent Outlook exploit that happened last week, if you're not patching your stuff right away, you're in trouble, right? We don't have time anymore to sit on our hands. So I think that as the defensive side of this, or the white hat side, we're going to need to be, again, extremely vigilant and ready to adopt new tools to combat the ever-growing threat.
And this is where the Open Directory platform approach in general is going to be helpful, because it gives you the flexibility. It reduces your footprint, moves you from proper infrastructure, huge bulk of vendors, etc., to a small footprint that's containerized, that's maintained, that gives you a lot of flexibility. And like, it's not going to be enough, obviously, but that's the base. You need that, and then you'll use whatever capabilities that are at your disposal. You'll use these to fight the threats of the months and years to come.
So sticking on the sort of looking at the future, Reilly had mentioned earlier that over time, JumpCloud has solved more and more problems for him. So Antoine, I was wondering if you could share a little bit about maybe what might be on your roadmap, or what are some things that JumpCloud is watching this year that, you know, their partners might be interested in?
So we're continuing to invest in all the areas that we have investments in. So identity, access, and device management, and making these three pillars easily manageable and auditable by our MSPs in general. So we'll dive deep in some areas. We'll introduce new additional functionalities that will drive automation and promote openness in a better way, which allows more versatility, etc. And yeah, I would say that partners can continue to expect, as Reilly mentioned, a fast pace of innovation from our end, and a very focused pace of innovation where we're diving deep to our core areas and really trying to optimize to make the lives of our MSPs and their clients better in general.
I want to add something to that. Something that really, from my perspective, really differentiates JumpCloud.
Reilly, I think we lost your audio. Or hang on a second, or did my headset die? Sorry, go ahead.
Anybody?
Yeah, I can hear him.
Go ahead. Sorry.
One of the things that I think really sets JumpCloud apart from a number of other competitors and players in the space is, if you look at like Cecilia and their rate of acquisitions, when even just look at Zoom. Zoom has said they are not going to spend any time on development. They are only looking at acquisition to build out feature set. JumpCloud is constantly working to improve their platform, and they are constantly seeking out input from their customers to understand how they're using them and how JumpCloud can support them better. And the development lifecycle is very much like stethoscope on the heartbeat of how their customers are using their products. And we see, even not even in a quarterly basis, in a weekly basis, you can reach out to JumpCloud and say, hey, we're working on this thing, we're wondering about this, get in touch with senior engineers and get code changes, get implementations done right away. Where the development life cycle is, it's right in front of your face and you're seeing it in real time, as opposed to sitting on your hands waiting for, you know, the next feature to come around that never does with these other vendors. And I don't know if it is just the nature of economics and how other companies have choose to done this, or whether it's an ethos thing, but the folks at JumpCloud are really, really interested in continually making their platform better. And it's evident in every conversation you have with the support staff over there. And that rate of innovation, I think, is probably, it's certainly in the like short list of reasons why JumpCloud is our preferred platform to work with.
But, you know, you also said that it's kind of what makes the salad dressing work. So Antoine, maybe JumpCloud should think about moving into its own line of salad dressings.
I mean, we need to diversify, so it's not a bad idea.
I think so. Well, this was a very, very awesome interview. I learned a lot. I'm sure Colleen also learned a lot. Great having you both on. So Antoine, I know we've been talking a lot about JumpCloud this episode, but if anyone wants to learn a little bit more about JumpCloud, we've got a link that we can give them. I can maybe throw it up on the screen here, but it's cloud.jumpcloud.com/ChannelPro podcast, or ChannelPro podcast, I should say. So cloud.jumpcloud.com/ChannelPro podcast. So folks, if you're listening in audio, go to the show notes or open up the description area on your phone. We'll put that link in there for you to make it a little bit easier, because I know it's kind of long. If you're watching, we'll put up a graphic on the screen here. We'll put a QR code. So go there, and it looks like they got a lot of stuff here in a video to learn more about JumpCloud and their JumpCloud for MSPs program. So go and check it out. With that, big thanks, Antoine, for joining us. You are the co-founder and general manager at MSP Channel at JumpCloud. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. With that, we are going to take a break. When we come back, Reilly will be joining us on the other side. We'll close out the show. We'll probably have a little bit of fun. You never know what's going to happen. That's why you got to stick around. And a big thanks to JumpCloud for sponsoring this particular episode. We will be right back. And we are now back with part 3 of this special edition of ChannelPro Weekly, sponsored by our friends at JumpCloud, who we just had one on. We were just talking with one. Big thanks to Antoine Jebara for coming on and talking to us today. It was a really, really good interview. I didn't really know a lot about identity transformation, open directory platforms, so I learned quite a bit. I know, Colleen, you said that you did as well. So really cool stuff. Any highlights that you want to point out from that interview, or any takeaways? Reilly, let's start with you.
If I had to kind of reinforce one of these messages that we talked about, it's that there are a lot of tools out there that accomplish similar tasks at hand. Even within the identity and access management space, there are a growing number of providers, the big ones being Azure and Okta, and the smaller ones being Rippling and OneLogin. I think, as someone who, as a professional, has engaged with all of these tools, like in a very rich under the hood, trying to roll them out for years kind of way, JumpCloud is by far the best one for companies that are under 500 people. And even after that size, it's still very much worth looking into. At a certain scale, provisioning becomes the dominating factor, and automation where that's kind of Okta's bread and butter. It's why they are such a big company. But for smaller organizations, JumpCloud is just a really, really great product to use. And if you haven't heard of it before, go check it out, get a demo. For super small organizations, like under 10 people, they will do 10 free licenses in perpetuity. Once you hit your 11th license, you have to be a paid account. But it's very easy to spin up a demo. And for smaller organizations, you can leverage the platform at no cost. Like, it's really great. Go try it.
Very cool. Colleen, anything you wanted to highlight or any takeaways?
Well, Reilly's enthusiasm kind of just reminds me, he talked about, Antoine talked about, how they're growing their partner program quite rapidly, and folks are, coming on board, and some of the benefits they offer. So, and efficiency and better use of resources seems to be an outcome of using the Open Directory platform as well. So that just kind of struck me.
Very good. Yeah, it was very cool. A lot of good stuff to learn. It was very, very in-depth. And yeah, Reilly, you added a whole lot to that as well. Some of the insights on how you use it and some of the problems that you're solving was, I thought, very, very insightful and very, very helpful for those MSPs out there who are probably trying to figure out like identity transformation. And they might know what these problems are, but haven't really figured out a way to deal with it yet or can relate to it. I think that's very, very helpful. So good stuff. With that, we're almost done with this particular episode, but before we go, we're gonna play a little game because Reilly, this is your first time on, so we want to welcome you to the ChannelPro weekly family here by playing our classic game of 5 questions. And for those who might be new audience members joining us, 5 questions is a little game where we will ask Reilly 5 different questions. Colleen and I will go back and forth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The shtick is that Colleen and I are not allowed to write them in advance. We have to think of them on the fly. And they often are goofy and silly, but we'll get to learn a lot about Reilly, and it'll be fun. You ready, Reilly? All right, Colleen, question number 1 to you.
Question number 1. Well, I guess we talked about sailing earlier. So where was the coolest place you've ever sailed?
Coolest place I've ever sailed. Sailing across the ocean is pretty cool. When I was 14, I sailed down the Nile in a traditional Egyptian felucca with
cool.
my mom. That was pretty sweet. Those were both very memorable ones. Other favorite sailing destinations. It's a little bit cliche, but like chartering a yacht and going island hopping in the Caribbean is just super duper nice. If you ever get the chance, it's great.
Very fun. So I have a friend that races, and I know that weight is very important in a race. So like every little thing that you take on board has to be weighed, and you need to find things that are as lightweight as possible. So what are the top 3 favorite foods that you tend to pack for sailing that are like lightweight?
Oh, for racing, I basically just don't eat. But when I'm going out sailing for fun, probably a bottle of rosé, grilled marinated artichokes, and fresh focaccia.
Ooh, I do like fresh focaccia. That sounds delicious. Also goes well with salad, which is gonna be probably my next question. Colleen, over to you.
Yeah, I'm going to stay on the food theme here. Reilly, you said that you're in New York City. I think you said you're from New York City. So I love New York City as a visitor. Haven't been in a while. What are 3 restaurants I should go to the next time I'm there?
I'm kind of a foodie, so I can give you some solid answers. There is a restaurant in Williamsburg, just up the block from me, that's quite excellent, called Meadow Sweet. It is owned by a husband and wife who have a farm upstate, and a lot of the produce they have comes from the farm. It's a farm to table place. Has had a Michelin star in its past, but is extremely unpretentious, down to earth place. You can walk in and get a table pretty much any day. Excellent food. Get the burrata. If you are looking for a like chill, hole in the wall but extremely well respected Mexican place, La Superior, a few blocks away, cash only, like very small menu, but everyone I've ever taken there has been like, wow, that place is awesome. Other excellent restaurants in New York. All right. Major favorite, Mamoon's Falafel on McDougal Street. It's a shit show getting on McDougal at night with Comedy Cellar and everything else that's right there. But this place has been around for decades. It's like a $4 falafel, and it is by many regarded the best falafel in the city.
Is that the Village, McDougal Street?
Yeah,
Yeah.
West Village.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of falafel in the city, so that would be very high praise if true.
It's so good. It's like you're in and out. They're churning them out at breakneck pace. But a real 1-2 punch is go get in line for Comedy Cellar. While you're in line, pop in, get a falafel, scarf it down, head downstairs, go get a comedy show.
Very cool. Very interesting. All right. My question number 4 to me is we made a crack about salad dressing, but salad dressings are near and dear to my heart. I like salad and I like dressings, because really salad to me is just the delivery vehicle for having delicious dressings. So if you were going to pick like your top few favorite salad dressings, what would you pick?
I make them all myself.
But you do. So what kinds do you tend to make that are your favorites?
It really depends on what you're making. You know, lemon oil bases are standard. There was a restaurant in Lower Manhattan when I was growing up that had one of the best balsamic vinaigrettes that I'd ever had. And when they closed, I went to the chef and was like, dude, you got to tell me how you do it. It's a very long process, but I got the recipe, and now that is my preferred balsamic vinaigrette to make. Probably takes an hour. Yeah. And I have a friend that works or used to work at a Italian food import company and got a like giant jar of Calabrian chilies that are packed in oil, and the oil from the Calabrian chilies makes a really nice dressing as well. It's hot, so it needs to be tempered, but
a lot of things I've never heard of. See, I'm from the Midwest, like rural Midwest. There is only ranch. That is the only salad dressing around here, and everything is dipped in ranch. Everything is covered in ranch. It is the dressing of dressings of the Midwest. But that balsamic vinaigrette sounds really, really good. I'm gonna ask you after the show, like what makes it take an hour to make, because that seems like an awfully long time.
You're sauteing shallots, you slow saute shallots for a while, then you are blending it for an extremely long time, because the shallots need to turn into a consistent homogenized dressing without chunks. Once it comes out of the blender, it's actually steaming. It's so hot. You're running it in the blender for like 20-30 minutes or something. It gets really, really smooth though. So shallots, garlic, basil, olive oil, Dijon mustard, but the majority of the time is in the blending, an extremely long blend time, and the adding the saute portion adds a little bit of time as well.
It sounds amazing. Actually, it totally does. I might actually ask you for the recipe for that. Colleen, question number 5 to you. Make it a good one.
Make it a good one. So we know you're a foodie. We know you sail. I'm always curious if people are music people. So Reilly, are you a music guy? And if so, what's your favorite kind of music?
I am a music person. There's probably like a dozen different speakers in this 1-bedroom apartment and subwoofers everywhere. I don't play music, but I go see shows very often. I'm a night owl and am often getting home at 5 a.m. after seeing electronic music. New York City's got a lot of good house music out here. I mean, I think it's like Chicago, Detroit, New York, were a lot of the kind of founding cities of house music. So my neighbors aren't too thrilled about it, but there's a lot of music happening in these parts.
All right, good to know.
Oh, very fun. It's always good to learn a little bit more about our guests who pop on the show and join us for this.
Is that a Sega Dreamcast on your stack of fun? over there.
Yeah, lots of people notice my background here, which is not a virtual background, that is physical stuff. But yes, you will see a Sega Dreamcast back there. You will
Yeah,
see a
the
Super
NES
Nintendo.
and NES are more common. I have an N64, but the Dreamcast is hard to come by. It's a good get.
Yep, and that's like from back in the day. Like that was when they were selling them in stores. That was my Dreamcast that I bought. What you don't see, because I got PS1, that's pretty common. I got the front loading NES. What you don't see, because it's a little higher up, I have an original Xbox. I have the top loading NES, which is really hard to find, and I have a Genesis with the Sega CD add-on up there as well, and way up high, I have a Nintendo Virtual Boy as well. I don't. Do you ever see the Virtual Boy?
Hey, yeah, the goggles.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the power glove.
Yep, and the display was all red when you looked into it. I got one of those that I also bought new at the time. That Nintendo right there was I believe it was a Christmas gift in 1980. I got it in 88, I think. So crazy how I go 88 or 89, one of the two. I think it was a late comer to video games, but yeah, that's all original stuff. You a big gamer?
Not so much anymore. I usually I'm a sucker for certain games. So on Nintendo, I was a Zelda person. My dog is running around here. His name is Zelda. So I will buy a console when that killer game comes out. So I have a Switch because I had to play Breath of the Wild. I will almost certainly buy an Xbox when the new Bethesda Starfield comes out.
Looks good.
During college, I was not attending college and was instead playing Call of Duty. So I have my years that come and go where I'm ensconced, and then years where there's no game that's got me.
I'm also a big Zelda guy. So I'm going to ask question number 6. I'm breaking my own rules, and we're playing 6 questions today. Which is your favorite Zelda game?
Ocarina, hands down.
Classic.
I mean,
of an Ocarina. That is a really good one.
It was also for me, that was my introductory Zelda game. It was I first got an N64. That was the one that opened up the whole deal. That was actually, I lied. That's why I bought the Switch. I played Breath of the Wild many years ago. Probably 6 months ago. I was like, I'm working too much. I need to chill out. I'm gonna play Ocarina. Got to switch to play Ocarina.
So you got the remastered one. I have the original copy back there. I haven't played the remastered one. But I will say that Ocarina is one of my favorites. Probably not my favorite. I think I'm a little older than you. I would say my favorite's probably the one for Super Nintendo. The title of it, A Link to the Past, is what that one is. That's probably my favorite of all of them. But Ocarina was really good, but it didn't age well. I will say.
Well, in terms of motifs or in terms of graphic?
Graphically, it's if I pop in that on the N64 and play it as it was back in the day, it's pretty rough.
Right.
But the game was amazing.
On the Switch, it was really nice. You can only get it through the store. You pay them a subscription per year to play all the old games. And it was upscaled really well. I've got a OLED TV over here, and it looked, I mean, it's still polygons this big, but it felt good.
Right, for sure. All right, so if you eliminate Ocarina, because when I usually ask somebody that question, they either say Link to the Past or Ocarina of Time or Breath of the Wild if they're young.
I mean, Wind Waker as a sailor, that was really fun.
I was surprised you didn't go there because Wind Waker was also probably
really good.
One of my
I really liked it. I didn't love the animation style of that particular game. Breath of the Wild is there. I think that they're really trying to borrow from the open world, craze that Bethesda has really pioneered. It was a less intense Skyrim, which nearly broke the internet. So as much as I love Zelda, and I will be playing Tears of the Kingdom, I think when it comes out later this year, Bethesda, I think, has really perfected that that type of game.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I'm a huge Fallout fan. I probably put more hours into that game over the last 2 years than any other game in history.
Yeah.
So that's always one of my favorites. Well, fun stuff. We could probably talk about video games all day, but our audience may not want to hear us talk about video games all day. But anyway, thanks for playing along. Thanks for coming on the show. If anybody wants to learn a little bit more about you, a little bit more about the company you work for, where can they go? How can they connect with you?
Macktez.com, MACKTEZ.com. We're based in New York City, but we have clients all over the world. Just drop us a line.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Colleen, how'd your first stint as co-host go?
I had a lot of fun, Matt, and I hope I can come back again.
Yeah, I hope so too. It was a lot of fun. Reilly, did you have fun?
Great time.
Good. He had a blast. Awesome stuff. So folks, where can you go? Make sure you subscribe to ChannelPro Weekly. We're in all the podcast places. We're Apple Podcasts, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, so on and so forth. Whatever your favorite podcast place is, go and find us there and subscribe. We're also on YouTube. If you like to watch, you can subscribe on YouTube, hit the bell, get notifications and all that stuff. And you can stick around with that. And of course, ChannelProNetwork.com is the website to go to each and every week. There you'll find the latest news, articles, resources, white papers, surveys, all kinds of great stuff that will help you keep on top of what's going on in this crazy industry, and also find lots of good, solid advice on ways to improve your business, improve sales, improve customers. Make sure you go there and take all of that in. If you'd like to email us, it's podcast@channelpronetwork.com. You can email us there. We're on all the socials, so go and find us there. Reilly, are you on the socials?
I'm not.
You're not.
I'm afraid of the internet.
Good for you. So if you want to follow Reilly, just send him an email. You can find his email address at their company page, and then if you want to connect with him that way, you can do that. And of course, Colleen, can you people find you on the socials?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, so find me there.
All right, so find and follow Colleen as well. I want to give one last final shout out. Big thanks to JumpCloud for sponsoring this special edition episode. It's because of them we can do these kind of fun specials like this and have some new guests on. So big thanks to them. Make sure you go and you learn about their offering. It is that link again. I'll put it up. It's cloud.jumpcloud.com/ChannelPro-podcast. I know that's a lot. Go to that link and learn a little bit more about what they have to offer. And big thanks to them. With that, we're gonna wrap up the show here, but we will be back again in the future. We've got I know another special edition episode coming up. So you'll probably have that next and more. We will see everybody soon. Take care.